Let's talk about visibility and getting on podcast as a service provider, a marketing assistant, or specialist. Hey, I'm Emily Reagan. I train virtual assistants how to be higher paid, higher priced marketing assistants. Marketing just gives you more flexibility in your projects, your services, and your hours so you can have more time at home working for high quality clients. Charging dream rates. So I love marketing services. So follow this channel, hit subscribe if you want to know more about how to have a high standard with your services, with your businesses, and book those dream clients. I'll do techie videos and I'll interview other freelancers and other marketing experts. Below this video, in the description, you're going to find links to everything we talk about, including the full-length podcast episode where we have Mai-kee Tsang talking about sustainable visibility. We go into much more depth over there. But before you go, make sure you join my free Facebook group and download my top 10 marketing services that I have offered in my business. This is a great starting point for pivoting from admin services to more value-based, higher paid marketing services. Today on the show, I have Mai-kee Tsang, a fellow introvert and a podcast guesting strategist. She comes from the copywriting world and she's going to share her story about how she learned to write podcast pitches and what sustainable visibility can mean for your business. As a service provider, once those clients kind of dry up and you've tapped into your current network, where do you go to get clients and how do you get those clients who will see you as an expert and see you as a partner? And podcast guesting, being known as an expert within the media, is always a great way to up level into the next stage of your business. So please tell everyone a little bit about you, your story, how you got here, all the good stuff.
So I set myself a challenge to pitch to 101 podcasters in 30 days. The reason why I picked such a high number is because, one, I knew that the PR industry, typically, it's around 3 to 10%. But here's what I did not take into account, Emily, is the fact that my copywriting skills, they have helped me communicate value. And so my booking rate was not 3 to 10%. It was 33. 1 in every 3 pitches said yes.
I know the power of copywriting, and I have also, as a podcast host, gotten a lot of super shitty pitches. And it's incredible. It's just incredible. So yeah, I can totally see that.
I think a huge piece that people miss is that they could just go straight to the pitch. Of course, I get it because they want the interviews, they want those interviews to be aired. But if you miss the first step about really determining what your messaging is, how it even relates to your offers, all of that, if you've missed that completely, those pitches will probably really miss the mark and you won't get what you're looking for.
They make it all about them. It feels like a one night stand. The second somebody has a book, I'm like, no, you actually messed up some pitches, right? Like you also learned by making mistakes. And some of those
Yes.
editors or podcast hosts were kind enough to steer you too, right? That was part
Yes.
of the
Oh,
process.
yes. This is really important to share, actually. So in the 101 pitches, my first pitch, they were the ones who told me, podcasters want to hear stuff that's for their audience, not just about what you want. And so in the future, I would recommend that you address your pitches that kind of way. Basically, I had to really shift the focus off of me and onto them.
I really wanted to get into your framework of your sustainable visibility. And I really like that you break it down so simple. You make it really easy.
Yes. So if podcast guesting is on your radar, whether it's 2024 and beyond, because again, these skills are truly timeless, then I have a all-inclusive workshop series called the Ultimate Podcast Guesting Workshop Series. And yes, I've been as bold to name it as that because it truly is the ultimate one.
Love it.
Yes, and you can find more info about that at maikeethan.com/UPG. So the pitch part is the second workshop of the 3,
Okay.
but the first one does go through, really being strategic about how it aligns with your offers, really creating that listener journey and like spark questions to help you come up with your signature topics. And then we got the pitching, and the last one is actually how you do the interview process, because I feel like that is also missed out a lot. But how do you actually prepare yourself for the interviews? How do you leverage those interviews to actually support your business? Because if you think that you just need to do the interview and move on to the next one, you are sorely mistaken, because that is a huge piece that people miss. And that, again, you're just kind of getting the cusp of the impact of podcast guesting that way. But if you actually re-leverage those interviews in a multitude of ways, not only will you be able to expand your reach even further, you continue to build those relationships, deepen that trust, and that is how you get those contacts.
Okay, I wanted to get a little bit into your core framework so we could leave the listener with a little bit of like inspiration and insight to how you really can show up as yourself, keep up this rate of visibility. There's so much pressure to be omnipresent, to be showing up, to be doing things that make us uncomfortable. And I know you've just figured out a way to handle these visibility strategies, and I would just love your guidance.
This actually branches off from the whole podcast guesting thing. So that's something that I've been known for quite a long time.
Mhm.
And when 2020 hit around the summertime, I remember having a conversation with a dear friend of mine saying that I really want to revolutionize what it means to be visible. Because for the longest time, it had only felt like the big, bold things like speaking on the TEDx stages or at the conferences or on these humongous podcasts or being published in Forbes or something, that they are the only things that count.
Yes.
But I really wanted to have more deeper conversations about how people can still have a wonderful business that supports them, their humanity, their family, etc., without needing to do those big things. They can, but doesn't have to be the focal point. Because one, we may not be there yet. And two, those big things may not even support our business model,
Yep, I've
which is
seen
a
that.
huge thing, right? I mean, like, not all visibility will lead to something. It's about being
Mhm.
strategic with what your business model is, what kind of volume you need in order to actually meet your revenue goals, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like that's often missed. And it's kind of like, oh, the big shiny things, that's all that matters.
Or it's like the
Yes.
bulk of it. My brain goes to when I was first becoming aware that I should be doing this was the time like Tarzan K was exploding, right?
Hmm.
And she was on 85 million different podcasts. And I think like, God, do I have to do that to like
Mm.
make money in my business? And so I kind of had that story in the back of my brain.
Yes, I can completely understand that. As much as I love doing podcast interviews, I pace it out a lot more. So
Okay.
earlier when I mentioned, oh yeah, I don't recommend everybody do that 101 pitch challenge in 30 days the way that I did, really finding that pace that really seems to work for you. And intention is really going to show as well.
Mhm.
So if I actually take podcast guesting as my personal example of sustainable visibility, let me just break that down a little bit.
Okay.
The reason why it works for me personally as a human is one, I'm an introvert. I don't particularly do well in big groups. And so that's why I love one on one conversations. Two is the fact that I can plan around it to a degree. And
Yeah.
so that works for me on that personal front. And from a business point of view, this may be a one on one conversation, but when it's out there in the world, it's endless people can listen to this. So it has a one-to-many reach, even though it's a one-to-one way of actually recording. And that is a huge benefit. Plus, when it goes live, I can re-promote it over and over again. So you don't have to keep doing things over and over again. You can actually just repurpose it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I never thought of it like that, but I just want anyone listening to realize if you are in a support role, how you can do what you're talking about and augment and let your clients have that rest cycle and take it off their plate because we all have all of these podcasts that we can rely on. And not only that, one thing I like to do is grab the transcript every time I'm on, and we can have a field day over on Chat GPT. I mean, your marketing assistant can go crazy with carousels and like using your own words that you don't even need to approve of because you spoke them.
So, sustainable visibility again is all about showing up in a way that is in service to you, your community, and your business. And just like how you talked about breaking up in seasons, I want you to envision three concentric circles, like a bullseye, all
Okay.
right? So, in the center, we have our first E. There are three E's, okay? So, the center, that will be your essentials. And what that means is that you lean on visibility strategies that will do what it needs to do when you're at your bare minimum, when you have very little capacity that you have spare, that you just need to keep going, but you can't do anything big and bold at that point because you're just at capacity. In the middle, you have your enhancements. So that's when you have a little bit more wiggle room to maybe do a collaboration here and there, maybe speak on a summit or on a stage. So again, when you have a bit more capacity, you can explore some visibility styles that are kind of closer to home, but still a little bit of a stretch for you. And then when you're in a season when you're like, yeah, I'm raring to go, that's the bigger circle. That is your embellishments, the cherries on top, the things that you said you'd get around to doing last year, but you never did, but now you actually have the time and resources to do it. Those are the big things. So instead of thinking about visibility as a binary thing, you either are visible or you're not, think of it more as a spectrum. And if it helps you to kind of compartmentalize it that way, those three circles, your essentials, your enhancements, and your embellishments.
Thank you. I feel like you gave me some really good shifts here, especially when you talked about those three E's and moving into our own visibility. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think actually just branching off from this story being at the microphone, that sometimes we think that in order to be visible, we need to be the one in the center spotlight on the stage.
Mhm.
But I think there's a sideline spotlight that we don't count, that we don't acknowledge and validate that this also matters. So sometimes we can be visible by supporting others in their own stories or just sharing one on your own, again, without needing to be the center point all the time. And I
Mhm.
think that can be a huge breath of fresh air for those of us who don't always or have ever liked being in the center spotlight. They're not a center person. They're not the main character. They're this side support character that everyone loves. That
Yep.
they want a spin-off show. you know, you can be that side character that really makes that impact. You don't always have to be the main. I do have a resource that can help podcast guesting wise. So if you are someone who would love to guest on more podcasts, but you're not quite sure where to start, or you want to hear it from those podcasters what they look for, I have a resource, literally just that. It's called Be Our Podcast Guest. And it's where I literally interviewed 25 podcasters. I asked them what they look for. I distilled it in a really beautiful document for you. So you can find that at maikeethang.com/25 experts.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'll link to that too. And thank you for the freebie about podcast guesting. All right, that was amazing. Again, the full episode is over on my podcast, Unicorns Unite. You can find the links to Mai-kee's podcast guesting workshop and how to write pitches down below. And I encourage you, if you're a virtual assistant, leaning into marketing, public relations, doing some of this PR for a client, you can charge more and you can pull out of the hourly drudgery zone to where you can start charging projects and be positioned to be doing VIP days, day rates, day weeks, and all of that. All right, make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.